Adam ducked back behind the wall moments before another burst of ionized air popped through the space he'd just been. He cast his eyes about for a moment before they found the body of a dead ducal guard to his right. Chuckling, he realized she had exactly what he wanted on her belt, so he bent down, opened the small pouch, and pulled out the palm-sized grenade. He paused as he looked at another small object on her belt. He pulled it free and nearly instinctively recoiled. The label identified it as pure menthol. If he managed to catch the Duchess alive, he had some ideas on what to do with the substance, so he shoved it in his pocket and stepped back to the corner, with the grenade in hand. Adam knew that the shield had a longer timer on their grenades than he was used to, about 8 seconds. He depressed the plunger and slid the tab on the explosive, mentally counting to 5 in his head, before he threw it around the corner. Exhaling as he hit 1 in his mental countdown, he readied himself for the small boom that was sure to rattle down the hallway, before a massive series of explosions shook the building beneath his feet. Above him, a crystal chandelier clattered noisily, giving him just enough indication to dodge out of the way of the massive, opulent piece of brown glassware, pure gold and blood gems. Pushing himself to his feet, Adam shook off the near-death experience with a snort and shake of his head. He lifted the rifle to his shoulder and peered around the corner. The guard on the left side of the hall had both her legs amputated by the explosion, in addition to the large chunks of her body carved out by the shrapnel, like ice cream scoops. He didn't see the second woman he'd been fighting, but the shattered window and small trail of blue liquid on it gave him enough confidence as to where she'd gone. Seeing his way clear, Adam pushed down the hallway, briefly stopping to peer behind a small set of cabinets that had been made into an impromptu barricade by the doorway. He let loose a shuddering exhale before nodding to himself and pushing through the doorway. A large landing pad stood before him, the burning remnants of a shuttle torn apart by what looked like a volley of heavy laser fire, sputtering and crackling away. Scattered pieces of shuttle and the bodies of ducal guardswomen were cast about the room. He turned left, getting eyes on the far corner of the landing pad, or what remained of it, and turned to clear the other side when a massive boom shook the room, and his weapon was wrenched from his hands. Stumbling backward, Adam tripped over a piece of debris and landed painfully on his shoulder. "All you had to do!" Duchess viciously growled from across the room as Adam rose to his feet. She held a massive pistol in her right hand, the bore still wafting a small trail of smoke as he steadied himself against the wall. Her outfit was torn in several places, where small cuts had rent the fabric apart, mainly lightly dotted with blue blood as cuts beneath bled freely. He looked at his rifle and grimaced, finding why it had been ripped from his grasp, thankful that it had just been pulled free. A golf ball-sized, red-hot crater sat in the side of the weapon, which was twisted at an odd angle, and clearly no longer operable. "Was just follow orders," the Duchess continued, adjusting the grip of her pistol in her hand as she glared at him with wild eyes. "You just had to protect me, my house, and my land. All of this," she continued, gesturing at the smoking ruins of her manor. Adam gave a passing glance at the destruction that had been, and continued to be, wrought, seeing soldiers on both sides being carried from the fight, lying dead on the ground, or still locked in life-or-death battles to the end. "Could have been avoided if you had just known your place." "This has always been my place," Adam coughed, as the wind blew a column of acrid smoke from the burning shuttle down his throat. He blinked away the thin film that settled on his eyes. He began to chuckle darkly as he took a step toward her, holding the cooked part of his rib where a shot had grazed him earlier. Afghanistan, the Citadel, Shill. It doesn't matter. "You know, you made a mistake sending Rexy after me, Duchess." "Oh, great, that bitch can't even hang—" she started to grouse. "Oh, no," Adam laughed. No, she fought just fine. Your mistake was sending someone like her to me." "I'm not following." The Duchess cocked her head in confusion. "You see," Adam clarified with a snort, "I've done a lot of bad shit in my life, Duchess. I lost count of how many people I killed years ago. I've tortured, used their families as bargaining chips, and gotten innocent people caught in the crossfire. After what you did to Januk, there was a part of me that gave up," Adam replied with a sad smile. "There was a part of me that wanted to agree with my old demons, kill every last Shovanti in the galaxy, fall back into who I was. Then you sent Rexy to finish me off. She was fair, fought despite the odds, and knew all the shit you made her do was wrong. Hell of a play there, sending me a fucking mirror like that," he noted with a small waggle of his finger. "If she can come around, then maybe it's just the big bitches like you that need to die. Maybe there's hope, after all you've done to my people, my home." "Typical male," the Duchess rolled her eyes. "Getting soft on me right before the big finish." Give me a minute to find a rifle, and I'll give you your big finish, Adam snorted, staring her down. No, the Duchess intoned malevolently, shaking her head. Either we both leave, or neither of us do. I guess neither of us do then, Adam shrugged. I've been on death's door since I graduated high school. Partisans die all the time, right, Duchess? What's one more compared to the august personage of a dead noble? Vic Lee furrowed her brows and stepped back, as Adam took another limp forward. He looked down and snorted when he saw a piece of the jagged metal that had lodged itself in his knee. He ripped it out and cast it to the side before continuing his walk forward. Every step forward he took, the Duchess backed away further, watching him as if he were the devil himself. I've got a lot of old friends on Earth, Duchess, he replied in a growl, so go ahead and kill me. I'm sure we've got our own satellite listening in on us by now, courtesy of the Imperial family. So when I say that it doesn't matter if you kill me, think on this. If it's not me, Callista and Kamalesh will find someone so much worse. Even if you manage to escape, somehow, he snorted, baring his bloody teeth. All that's going to happen is you getting to watch as men that make me look like a saint rip and tear everything you've ever loved up by the roots. We'll see, the Duchess replied after a moment's consideration, lifting the pistol into place. No! A voice shouted from Adam's right before he was tackled to the floor. In the same instant, the gun in her hand cracked loudly. Adam and his assailant landed bodily on the floor in a heap, rolling over once, then twice. In a split second, Adam recognized the overgrown, stylish tuft of hair atop the man's head, and he stopped struggling, realizing that it was Jennok. Adam looked up to find the Duchess struggling with a weapon, slamming a hand into the side of it and cursing loudly. Understanding the jam for what it was, Adam looked around for a weapon and grinned when he realized what had stopped their motion. He grabbed the sidearm of the dead guardswoman's waist, brought it level with the Duchess, and fired off 10 shots into her chest, the ionized pops muted compared to the blast of her larger pistol. The Duchess stumbled, futilely grabbing her smoking abdomen as she dropped her pistol. She tripped back over the body of one of her servants and fell into a fetal position, her limbs still moving in uncoordinated spasms in a fruitless attempt to get her away, like a mouse caught in a spring trap. Snorting at the pained flailing of the woman, Adam slapped the back of the man who saved him in the nick of time. Damn good timing, Bud, he laughed, leaning his head against the body behind him. Fucking damn good time. He paused as his hand felt warm and wet. He looked down to find his hand soaked in blue blood. Fuck. No. He ground in a panic, flipping the teen onto his back to look him over. Jennok smiled sadly as the line of blue blood trailed from his mouth, a single hand pressed to a fist-sized chunk that was missing from his chest. Jennok muttered blearily, as his eyes unfocused. I did it. I was the hero. Yeah, bud, Adam said, as tears streamed down his cheeks, and he searched a nearby guard's belt for a first aid kit. You did. You're the hero. Just stay alive. Chest seal. Where the fuck is the chest seal? It's okay, Jennok nearly whispered, as Adam fumbled for anything to stop the bleeding. Medic! He shouted at the top of his lungs, hoping anyone would hear. He began to search the pockets of his own shorts desperately for something to save the young man's life. Adam, Jennok whispered, as he pulled the small pill bottle of menthol free. It's okay. No, it's not, Adam snarled, looking into the boy's eyes as he felt his own chest tighten and his chin begin to wobble. He exhaled a deep breath when he realized that he couldn't save Jennok. As a single tear fell through the hole in his lower chest, Adam felt that same malevolence creep its way through his body. His hand tightly gripped the menthol as he made plans for the Duchess to die in as much agony as possible. A hiccuping sob escaped his lips when a cold, loose grip tightened around his own. You're not, Jennok said, his breath a near whisper as he smiled sadly at Adam. You're not them. The boy's hand slipped off his own as his head lolled to the side, gazing off into the night sky. Adam spun at the small noise behind him, leveling the pistol and firing off a burst as several women ducked behind cover. I'll fucking kill you all! He shouted in a blinding range before a single voice cried out. Adam! Somebody yelled, throwing her helmet and massive rifle onto the ground. It's me! Don't shoot! Adam paused as she stuck both hands around the edge of the wall behind her head. Shit, sorry, he mumbled, before turning back to Jennok's lifeless body. Another angry knot tightened in his throat as he gripped the menthol in his left hand and the pistol in his right. He felt a swirling sea of icy, numb emotion fill his heart as his heartbeat quickened and his breaths came in rapid, irregular intervals. Adam, Samilla ventured hesitantly from behind him. Is everything... Oh, fuck, shit! Adam had no reply for her enraged outburst, merely turning his head to watch as he cursed at a dead ducal guard, before bringing her booted foot down to crush the dead woman's skull. A loud cough, followed by a wheeze from the edge of the room, brought Adam's eyes up to see the Duchess, crawling on the ground with one arm, her other pressed to a hole in her gut. Adam's white-knuckled grip on his weapons tightened, as he began to walk towards the panicked woman on instinct. As he neared her, the Duchess reached for a nearby rifle desperately, only to have a heel slam into her wrist. She screamed through gritted teeth, as her hand flopped listlessly around. Adam grabbed her shoulder and ripped her onto her back before he slammed the butt of his pistol into the side of her skull. What? She muttered groggily, as he squatted down in front of her, laughing without humour. I'm gonna make you wish you'd eaten your own gun, purple fucking cunt, Adam hissed, as he began to unscrew the cap of the menthol, intent on shoving the entire bottle down her throat. You're not them. He paused halfway through the threads, as his brain sluggishly caught up to what Jennick had been desperately trying to communicate. You're not them. He sighed before gulping back a sob. Standing up, he gazed into the fearful eyes of the Duchess, as her differently dilated pupils flicked from him, to the gun, to the bottle and back again. I'm not you, he said simply, tossing the bottle lazily into the air between himself and the Duchess. He brought his pistol up with a speed that surprised even him, and pulled the trigger. Invisible energy vaporized the bottle between them, before making his way to her skull. A wet squelch and a loud pop resounded in the room, before she went cross-eyed as a new canyon was opened on the crown of her head. Both her arms reached into the air, as the last pulses of energy from her malfunctioning brain tightened the muscles in her torso with an audible groan. The bright sparking dust of crystallized menthol fluttered in the breeze, making their way into the battle below, as Adam turned away and walked to Jennick. One of Samilla's fighters was kneeling next to Jennick's body, her head hanging as she pulled her finger off his neck. Adam leaned down, tossing the pistol aside before he picked the dead boy up in his arms. I can hit... She cut off, as Samilla placed a hand on her shoulder and shook her head. Making eye contact with the ex-commando, Adam nodded, thankfully, and turned for the door. He's coming out now, Empress, a glaive told Callista, as she helped load another wounded fighter into one of the shuttles. She stretched her aching back and turned for the gate before she froze. Head to toe, Adam was covered in deep crimson and vibrant indigo, a haunted look in his eyes as he carried the emaciated corpse of a boy, no older than her second grandson, in his arms. Callista felt a lump as hard as iron form in her chest, as he stumbled across the plane to her shuttle. She took off her helmet and tossed it to the ground, stepping forward to meet him. Adam, she soothed when she got close, pulling back the mask of the Empress for the second time today. Casualty collection point, he rasped, as a tear cut through the muddled blood on his face. Over here, she gestured for him to follow her, intuiting what he meant. She led him back to her personal shuttle, having returned from his last round of dead and wounded. Her standard bearer stiffened at the sight of her, jostling the Imperial battle flag atop the spear she carried. She slowed her pace to fall in line with Samilla. The woman and her unit had broken through the lines with their lightweight recon vehicles earlier in the fight to save Slip and get to him. What happened? Callista asked softly. Kid took a bullet to save him, Samilla intoned softly, clearly lost in her own thoughts as well. Big Bitch used a fucking kinetic accelerator pistol. I don't know all the details, but I think he surprised them both. Who was he? Callista questioned. Doesn't matter, Samilla shook her head, as she clearly fought back the tears. He was important to Adam, so he is important to us. I understand, Callista remarked, realizing she'd get no further information from her. Adam laid the boy across a cushioned seat in the shuttle, pausing to close his eyes, drawing a hand down the youth's face as he said something in his native tongue. He stepped out of the shuttle and turned to face the standard bearer. He reached up to the flag, and the woman jerked it back. This is the Imperial battle stand... She cut off as Adam delivered a solid left hook to her gut, and grabbed the spear as it fell from her grasp. Are you... the guard stammered, reaching for the sidearm at her waist. Callista, Samilla, and her men had their guns drawn and raised before she could continue. The woman gulped and stood stock still, saying nothing further, as Adam ripped the 8-foot by 3-foot piece of fabric from his rings, and tossed the spear unceremoniously back to the stunned woman, who let it bounce off her chest, as she stared with wide eyes and slack jaw at him. Adam stepped back into the shuttle, drawing the silken flag over the face and body of the boy as an impromptu shroud. Adam dropped out of the shuttle and sat down on the edge, holding his head in his hands. "Leave," Callista commanded all present, moving to sit next to him. Without further input, they did as instructed, fleeing the area. Callista leaned her rifle against the edge of the shuttle as she sat down. "Adam, I don't even she started, before being abruptly cut off. "Should have been me," he muttered, through his hands, before sniffing once. "No, it shouldn't have." "Janet took a bullet with my fucking name on it," Adam growled, lifting his head from his hands, caked with dirt and blood. "How should it not have been me? He was just a kid." I'm a soldier, Cal." He barely got out as heavy sobs threatened to break his composure. I don't matter. My death makes sense, but him? After all he went through?" Adam choked out a sob as his lips quivered, and his eyes unfocused. He could have made it out," he blubbered, gesturing around them wildly. "He didn't have to die like this. Back to his family, back to a normal life." Callista reached out, wrapping her arms around him as she pulled him to her chest, his body heaving with deep, painful sobs. She didn't have an answer. She couldn't. Her jaw clenched as her own tears began to threaten their way down her eyelids, while she held her inconsolable grandson. Indara came walking with Slip and Sal around a bend in the hill hesitantly, making eye contact with her. She shook her head slowly, as she rested her jaw atop Adam's head. He had long since passed out, exhausted by the events of the day. Indara nodded, and pulled the other two back the way they came, much to Sal's audible displeasure. A medic stepped hesitantly past them onto the shuttle. "Eminence, we have to get going," she whispered softly, placing a hand on Callista's shoulder to get her to notice. Nodding wordlessly, Callista scooped the unconscious Adam into her arms and laid him across from his friend, sitting down and pulling his head into her lap. His blood had dried with the blood of Shilvanti, and she eyed the small flakes left on her hand. Purple. Much like her own skin. The shuttle doors closed around them, as she gently stroked his hair, humming the lullaby her mother had sung for her, and she'd sung for her children and grandchildren.